Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Nice, great.
We get
Looks like there were some.
monitors. I'm not sure if there's much monitor.
We're getting our monitors
Are
out
you?
front, but I don't think Gord's monitor is it on? Maybe it's not on. He just needs to turn it on, I think. Is it good?
Yeah, it's on now.
We're gonna sing a song in the service. Whoa, yeah. That might be. Oh, thanks, yeah. So we're gonna sing a song called "Here at This Table," and I just want to give you a little taste of it so that we know how to sing a bit of it when it comes along. It's a song that
we're gonna do that for Friday.
it's an original song. It was written for the children's event at in Pacific. What's the region next to you? Pacific Mountain region. Yeah. And so there's a few people who were here at that event.
What is this you're doing now?
This is the weekend of the meeting in
So
Medicine.
if there are folks on slides could bring up here at this table or here's
And
your
right now it's,
table. It might be
church
one of then
There's a lot of-
great.
No, I don't.
There
It's
is our
tomorrow.
the first words. I wish I'd put them all on one slide, but maybe
But I
they're
won't do
gone on
that.
different slides now. We can see. Here's the first slide. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then they're all on one slide, I think, at the very end. Great. Okay. So let's go to the first slide again. So I'll sing it all through to you once, and then we'll put it together. Actually, maybe I'll sing you the first couple lines. It goes, now if you're hungry or if you're down, if you've been pushed out, if you've been left out or pushed around. So try that much. Now, if you're hungry or if you're down, if you've been left out or pushed around, and if you're hurting all around town, then here's your table. Come now be found. Try that. And if you're hurting all around town, then here's a table. Come now be found. So it's pretty simple. Let's try the whole thing together. Go back to or let's just keep singing, sure. Now if you're hungry or if you're down, if you've been left out or pushed around, and if you're hurting all around town, then here's a table. Come now be found. Maybe you're lonely, maybe you're scared, you're feeling different, but no one cares. Filled up with worries you just can't bear. But here's your table, pull out a chair. That's right. Now the second part goes like this. It goes, brave the danger, friend or stranger, look into each face. At this table, it's no fable, love has set each place. Try the first part. Brave the danger, friend or stranger, look into each face. Second part, at this table, and this is the line goes, it's no fable, it's no fable. Love has set each place. Try the whole thing. Brave the danger, friend or stranger, look into each face. At this table, it's no fable, love has set each place. Now if you're hungry, or if you're down, if you've been left out, or pushed around, and if you're hurting all around town, then here's a table, come now be found. Maybe you're lonely, maybe you're scared, you're feeling different, but no one cares. Filled up with worries you just can't bear. But here's your table, pull out a chair. Brave, now brave the danger, friend or stranger. Look into each face. At this table, it's no fable. Love has set each place. Brave the danger again. Brave the danger, friend or stranger. Look into each face. At this table, it's no fable. Love has set each place. Great, there's a taster, and we'll sing that in the worship time. Ask for the ancient past. Ask for the ancient past. Where the good way lies, and walk in it. Where the good way lies, and walk in it. Did you hear that? Where the good way lies, and walk in it. Where the good way lies. And walk in it, that's the find the rest for your souls. It's going to be a little different this morning. It's just going to go like this. It's going to go, find rest, find rest, find rest, hold that. And again, find rest, find rest, find rest. And a third time, find rest. We're building it. Find rest for your souls. Then stand at the crossroads and look. 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 Ask for the ancient paths. 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 Where the good way lies, and walk in it. Where the good way lies, and walk in it. Where the good way lies, and walk in it. Where the good way lies, and walk in it. Find rest, find rest, find rest, find rest. Find rest, find rest, find rest for your soul. So soon, we're going to drop all the instruments away and we're going to come off mic, and we want to make sure you all know your parts so we can just sing, no microphones, no leadership, and we're just going to build that. So I hope you're all learning your part. Yeah, you got it? It's coming along? Great. It's good to know.
Thank you, Revolve, for that wonderful way to start our mornings, and welcome everyone to day 2 of the annual general meeting of the Chinook Winds region. There are a few announcements as we begin. First of all, you see various things on your table. We know that Alberta has gone into election season, and so the Chinook Winds region executive has sponsored a series called The Politics of Jesus. We've had, I think, 3 entries so far. It's on the website. There's some on your table. We invite them to you to share those with your congregation as well. It's just an idea of nonpartisan completely, almost like that old "what would Jesus do" kind of thing, And so please follow along. I think we have 7 entries before the election, and that's one thing to consider. Today there will be choir at lunch. So if you want to be in the choir for the celebration of ministry service on Sunday, then we invite you to join a choir rehearsal. I'm guessing it's in the sanctuary. But what we want to do as hospitable people is, if someone is in the choir, let them get their lunch first, all right? So choir members get to eat first. If that's an incentive for you, then use that. I know that would be mine, but anyways. Today we have, there'll be coffee and break type items set out at the back table. And we're just asking you to sort of take care of yourself as you need to. We might have stretch breaks, but we're not going to have a long half-hour break. There's a lot on the agenda. And honestly, we vowed this year it was going to be a lot more space to breathe. And every week, something more important would come up. So just, if you need to go out, get some air, do what you need to do to make sure that you take care of yourselves. There are display tables, which we didn't mention yesterday. If you go out that door and turn to your right, there's a place there. There's Affirming Connection has theirs. We already know about Canyon Camp because we had our public service announcement yesterday about that. And Leadership has a table there. And some other things are in there. So go have a look around the display tables. No, there's no book display this year. They apparently, United Church doesn't do that anymore. So unfortunately, but there are some books on the tables, but no book display. Cluster groups will be meeting for lunch, and Taylor will tell you more about that later. Networking groups are meeting sort of ad hoc, so if you're, for instance, part of DUC and you're meeting, yes, go ahead. Saturday, just all day? Lunchtime. DUC is meeting at lunch on Saturday, but I know there's other groups that want to meet, so you can arrange that time in the schedule as you need to. One more thing you'll see this afternoon, you'll get something on your table, but Chinook Winds region is going to have a Camino type experience this year, which is a walk from Clare's home to Waterton, 7 days, I believe, a pilgrimage walk. So that's towards the end of August, 21st to the 29th of August. We'll have save the date materials out there, and registration will begin the end of May. So lots of things happening. As always, thank you for your patience. We want to begin our session again with a kind of land acknowledgement. Tony and I were in conversation about how to do that, because too often we get this, we're going to read this statement, and it doesn't really sink in, you know. So for the next 2 days, we're going to tell us stories of our region, both from an Indigenous perspective and from a settler perspective. I just want to invite Tony to come up. And I mean, I'll begin, but I'll invite you. I serve, as you know, at McDougall United Church in Calgary, and McDougall bears the name of one of the early, I guess we say, missionaries in our region. It's named after Reverend John McDougall, who was sent by the Methodist Church to establish a mission at Morley in 1873. John and his father George were Methodist missionaries, and as one historian notes, there's hardly an incident in the history of the West in which the McDougall family were not involved. It was just, and of course that's the West after settlement and colonization, because the history of the West goes back 10,000 years at least, doesn't it, Tony? And I like to remember that. It's John's reports on the whiskey trade which helped convince the Canadian government to form the Northwest Mounted Police. He consulted with his friend, Plains Cree Chief Maska Pitoon, on the continual tribal warfare, the threat of smallpox, and the loss of the buffalo. In 1875, he consulted with the Blackfoot Chief Crowfoot and federal government officials about the impending major changes to Indigenous lifestyle and the need for negotiations. John McDougall assisted the Stoney Nakoda First Nations in the negotiation of Treaty Number 7 and was a second settler signatory on the September 22nd, 1877 signing of Treaty 7 at the historic Blackfoot Crossing. John was named by the Canadian government as a special commissioner to investigate both the Red River and Northwest rebellions. John McDougall was born in Owen Sound, Upper Canada in 1842 and learned Ojibwe. What would that be called? Is it still Ojibwe, or is there a different language, Tony? Anishinaabe, yes. As a child, living among Indigenous people in various frontier settlements. As a youth, he moved to near Norway House, Manitoba, to assist his father in the mission there, becoming fluent in Cree and living off the land to supplement their meager salary. George, John, and families moved on to the missions at Fort Carlton, Victoria Settlement, Fort Edmonton, Pigeon Lake, Rocky Mountain House, and Morleyville. John was very physically fit, experienced hunter and trapper, able to provide for his family. While at the Victoria Settlement, he married Abigail, daughter of Reverend Henry Bird Steinhauer of Saddle Lake First Nation. She died unexpectedly in the early 1870s, along with 2 daughters during the influenza epidemic. He later married Elizabeth Boyd during a visit to Ontario, and they immediately returned west by Red River cart to establish the missions. John was a powerful ally to the First Nations in his day. Much to the chagrin of the Indian agent and the Canadian government, John and Stampede organizer Guy Wiedeck insisted that the Stoney Nakoda should participate by dancing and riding at the first Calgary Stampede of 1912. In later years, he spoke out against the past system and government rules that impeded Indigenous people's ability to support themselves and preserve their culture. To the government and settlers moving into the traditional territory of Indigenous people, the treaty was a written contract with terms describing what each signatory would be contributing or giving up and what benefits would be received. The government required the Indigenous people to surrender their traditional homeland to the Crown, except for small areas of reserves, in order to allow development by incoming settlers and to provide right-of-way for the Canadian Pacific Railway. To the Indigenous people, the treaty was seen as a covenant, an agreement to share the land and resources with newcomers, and containing the promise of a crown to care for the Indigenous people. These are two very different concepts. In hindsight, it appears that neither party understood the concept of treaty held by the other party. In addition, administration of the treaties by the federal government in many ways violated their obligations under the provisions of the treaties. The failure of the government to recognize the oral tradition of Indigenous people and the incomplete translation into their languages probably also contributed to misunderstandings. At McDougall, we have a teepee. It stands in our sanctuary to continue the crucial conversation in McDougall Church and Chinook Winds region in developing reconciliation and right relations with Indigenous people. I want to thank Barry Clayton for writing that up on the story of the McDougall family and their settling in Treaty 7 territory. Now Tony's going to tell us a story about the Indigenous people from the same region.
Good morning. Dagun Chawa Mintauncha Stubby. That is our greeting in our language that says, my greetings to my relatives, my kinspeople. In this acknowledgement that we just heard, there is also an Indigenous side to these stories. There's an important connection through the United Church to our area. And it begins before John McDougall with the travels of many explorers and missionaries that came through the area. David Thompson, John Palliser, others that came through searching for a way through the mountain pass. And the Stonies already knew the mountain pass, so they would lead them through, guide them to the other end, and let them go on their journey. As they did this, they built a relationship, they talked to people, they worked with them. They began a process of welcoming, helping, guiding, sharing, and passing on some of our traditions. When the Reverend Robert Rundle came through our area, he was the first missionary. In the document called, and they gathered by the river by the Central United Church in Calgary, document, a book that they created in the 1970s. It says, Robert Rundle learned the Assiniboine language. He came through the area, and by the 1850s, he was conducting services in Assiniboine, conducting marriages in Assiniboine in our native language. And so there was, in some effort of the church to become more aligned with Indigenous people and their teachings, and to grow that relationship through their practice of ministry. It's a very important point. But we didn't have converts to the new religion at that time. Henry Bird Steinhauer, who was an Anishinaabe missionary from the Rama, Ontario area, the Oneida Reserve, came to our area via the waterway systems from Manitoba. He was sent out there after his training. As a child, he had been taken by a benefactor and trained in Boston, went to England, learned Hebrew, Greek, and a number of other religions in order to become a minister. When he earned his credentials, he came out to Norway House, and across the prairies. And you'll see along that very prophetic journey a number of different churches, a number of different connections that are sprung up, ending in Morley. In Alberta, he created 4 independent churches. One at Saddle Lake, one at Goodfish Lake, one at Musquetees, and one at Morley. The one at Morley is the first church that we have built from the McDougall family in 1873. And that is a little wooden church that sits atop the hill. It can't be viewed by people. You have to go inland to the reserve to see that. When Henry Bird came and introduced an Indigenous perspective on Christianity, that is when we started to get the first adherents. And the first adherent, called the first Christian, was a medicine man, a healer, prominent, holy person in our tribe. And so that was a way in for the Christian faith to be understood in relation to our own belief. When the missionaries came to our area, they called them Wikone Wichasta, and that means the one who speaks with God. That term is also applied to our medicine people, to our pipe carriers, to our sun dancers. This term is a term that speaks of the special quality of a person. And seeing these missionaries come in, speaking about the Creator, speaking about God, gave the people that insight that these were holy people coming to do the work of God, of Creator. Their actions later demonstrated something different. And so they lost that standing in and amongst our people because they could see that they weren't just following God's orders. They weren't just following God's teachings. They were also looking out for their own interests, which is not something that is native to our people, that we must, in our faith and in our tradition and in our calling, do what we can for the people. We share, we encourage, we help to heal, we help to work with the spirits of others, helping to bring a new vision of this balance between the lessons of the newcomers, the teaching of the Hebrew people, that connection with God, and how we understand our connection to God. My father would always say, he was a United Church minister from our community, the first United Church minister in Alberta. He would say that we already knew God when the missionaries came. And it's important because if we had the conversation of this God that you worship, this God that you understand, is the same God that we, the missionaries, observe. And did you know that that God had a son? It's a very different conversation to enter in that way versus saying what you worship is wrong, what you worship is condemnable, what you worship is demonic, which is, by and large, how Indigenous people were treated. And so this relationship of treaty and the time of treaty was a time of upholding that value again, as we did with the Wikone Wichasta ideal, and the result. So the pipe ceremonies, the prayers, the invocation of God into the treaty, into the relationship with the treaty, and into the well-being of the people was invested. The result became something very different. And as we live out things like the pass system, things like residential schools, things like the exclusion from people from particular areas. I always talk about Canmore. Canmore has a jail in the historic jail in the town. And that jail was built because that was where the Native people went when they arrived in the town. They were not allowed to be in the town. The same thing with my father wanting to go to seminary, couldn't go to seminary in Canada. This is the 1950s, late 1950s, early 1960s. He had to go to the States. So he went to Phoenix where he met my mother. And in Phoenix, he received his training and came back to Canada, an ordained minister, but had to be ordained to the United Church, so he had to do classes at St. Stephen's College in Edmonton. And after a few classes, he was allowed to go, but not to his reserve, he was allowed to go to another community. So he went to Wolseley, Saskatchewan, Carry the Kettle area. That was his first posting. This was when my oldest sister was born, and then my family. I was born up in St. Paul, where he was a minister to the Saddle Lake area, Saddle Lake. Touch on as I end this.
I'm sorry I interrupted you. We were going to talk about the Manitou stone tomorrow and get that more. So it's like Tony and I have known each other for quite a few years, so I took some liberties there. Sorry about that. We just want to finish this section with a litany that Tony's prepared for us as we talk about how we have been in this land. We don't have two histories, we have one history, and we need to read them together. And so I invite you, I'll do the yellow and you can do the black. We are bounded on this land by relationships. Those relationships have benefited our community. We speak acknowledgement of our presence. We must learn to share as God has shared with us. We are bound to our Indigenous neighbors and their fate. May we learn to live into our commitment to the TRC and the UNDRIP. May it be so. Amen. I want to invite the worship people to come and share.
Good morning, everyone. That's kind of lame. Come on, guys. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our worship service this morning. My name is Reverend Kim Holmes Younger, and this is Reverend Trevor Potter. And we have prepared most of the worship services for this gathering. So there'll be one today, and there is one tomorrow morning, and then a closing one tomorrow afternoon. So we'll start right now with the candle lighting. Once there was someone who said such amazing things and did such amazing things. People began to follow him. And one day, they simply had to ask, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am the light of the world." With our first candle, we proclaim the life and teachings of Jesus Christ, who was born to a woman in poverty in a time of social upheaval and political oppression, who knew human joy and human suffering, and preached of liberation and not domination. May we build a kingdom and live peacefully together.
Jesus preached of reconciliation between people. Our second candle represents our commitment to reconciliation. We recommit ourselves to the principles and actions needed to decolonize the church, society, and ourselves. May this candle remind us of our responsibility to act in solidarity and hope.
Jesus preached of love, affirmation, and inclusion. This candle represents our commitment to being an affirming community. We affirm the holy beauty of every person. We are beloved because of who we are, how we identify, and who we love. May this light represent our radical welcoming and remind us that the Holy Spirit shines through each and every one of us in all of our diversity. Amen. So let us join in a time of celebration and singing.
It's a song called "We Are a Rainbow." How many people have sung this song before? Okay, a few hands. So sing out loud and strong and we'll be all right. We're the light of all the world. We are a city on a hill. We're a candle on a stand proclaiming light. We will not hide our lamp beneath the bushel anymore. We will shine a ray of hope that's burning bright. We are a rainbow, sign of covenant and peace, for the flood of tears will finally cease to be. Come shine your rainbow, splash your hues across the sky, paint the world in colors, proud and bold and free. You're doing really well. That's great. We're We are a rainbow, sign of covenant and peace, for the flood of tears will finally cease to be. Come shine your rainbow, splash your hues across the sky, paint the world in colors, proud and bold and free. We are We are joy that will last, Don't be frightened, we face. We are love that blooms and grows and in the heart. We are of the rainbow, sign of covenant and peace. For the flood of tears will finally cease to be. Come shine your rainbow. Splash your hues across the sky, paint the world in colors, green and gold and free. Hear the face of gold, sign of covenant and news. God will be with us along the way. Hand in hand, side by side, we won't be frightened anymore. We're really struggling here. We're gonna make it. Want to try the last verse again? Maybe we'll try it. Oh boy, we're really struggling here. Okay, let's try the last verse again. Is that it? The last verse? No, that's the. There we are. Let's try it again. Okay, and face the storms of life. We will never be alone. Like you mean it, for our God will be with us on the way. Hand in hand, side by side, we won't be frightened anymore. As the morning breaks into day, we are a rainbow, sign of covenant and peace. For the world will finally cease to be. Shine your rainbow. Splash your hues across the sky, paint the world in colors, proud and gold and green. Paint the world in colors, proud and gold and green. Well done, folks. Not sure what was happening there. We're gonna sing this song. Here is your table. We're going to invite you to rise for this song for sure. And this song is a song written for a grade 4, 5, 6 crew. And I just want, one of the things that I've done a lot of is do music at youth events and children's events. And I wrote this song for an event where we were inviting people to think of the table instead of walls that were being built. This was when there was a wall being built near Mexico by our neighbors. And so the table metaphor, and this really, so this was written for folks kind of in junior high and just before junior high, coming into this time of trying to navigate the social realm and feeling the difference and feeling uncertain. And so I just want to share that with you, and because these words, I think they really ring with our theme this morning too. So let's try it together. You remember it? It's a real rocker. So we practiced it just before. It goes like this. Now, if you're hungry, or if you're down, if you've been left out or pushed around, and if you're hurting all around town, then here's a table. Come now, be found. That's right. Maybe you're lonely. Maybe you're scared. You're feeling different and no one cares. Filled up with worries you just can't bear. And here's your table. Pull out a chair. Again, that now if you're hungry, or if you're down, if you've been left out or pushed around. And if you're hurting all around town, then hear the table, come now be found. Maybe you're lonely, maybe you're scared, you're feeling different, but no one cares. Filled up with worries you just can't bear, but here's your table, pull out a chair. The second part goes like this. Brave the danger, friend or stranger, look into each face. At this table, it's no fable, love has set each place. Again, brave the danger, friend or stranger, look into each face. At this table, it's no fable, love has set each place. One more time. Brave the danger, friend or stranger, look into each face. At this table, it's no fable, love has set each place. Now if you're hungry, or if you're down, if you've been left out or pushed around, and if you're hurting all around town, then here's the table, come now be found. Maybe you're lonely, maybe you're scared, you're feeling different, if no one cares, filled up with worries you just can't bear. But here's your table, pull out a chair. Brave the danger, friend or stranger, look into each face. At this table, it's no fable, love has set each place. Brave the danger, friend or stranger, look into each face. At this table, it's no fable, love has set each place. Now if you're hungry, you're down, if you've been left out or pushed around, and if you're hurting all around town, then here's the table, come now be found. Maybe you're lonely, maybe you're scared, you're feeling different, Bill no one cares, filled up with worries you just can't bear. Let's hear your table, pull out a chair, keep singing now if you're brave the danger, friend or stranger, look into each face. At this table, it's no fable, love has set each place. One more time now, brave the danger, friend or stranger, look into each face. At this table, it's no fable, love has set each place. Well done, well done. Really get rocking on that one.
Thank you, Revolve. How lucky are we to have these men here? So incredibly lucky. Okay, I'm gonna ask everyone something, and I need complete honesty, okay? So I went to the washroom this morning, the second women's stall, and this was laying by the toilet. So if you lost $20, I have it. Yeah, can you identify it? What's on it? Who this person is? But if you're a male and you come up to me, then no. Please join me in a prayer before we start. Make sure that everyone has a bag of Skittles in front of you. Now you may say, it's morning, I don't eat candy in the morning. Well, too bad. I don't care. And my Skittles are missing. If you don't have Skittles, put your hand up. If you don't have a bag. Okay, so if you say don't eat sugar in the morning, but you eat jam, you eat sugar. If you don't eat sugar in the morning, but you eat sugar pops, you eat sugar. If you don't eat sugar in the morning, but you have sugar in your coffee, eat sugar. So we're all good. I think everyone in this room probably eats sugar. So we're going to have a Skittle prayer. We're going to start with the green candy. And as we eat this candy, we're going to thank God for one gift or one good thing in your life. Family, love, health, friends, or foods. I can't just eat candy. It's too much. So you guys eat the candy. I'll just say things. For a yellow candy or each yellow candy you eat, pray for a friend or neighbor who needs help or who needs to know Jesus. As you eat the red candy, pray for someone you love. As you eat the orange candy, pray for someone who is sick or needs to be healed. As you eat the purple candy, pray for yourself. Tell God something that is weighing on you or something you need help with. Great God of creation, we take all of these prayer requests along with your promise to never abandon us. In your name we pray. Amen.
in a different denomination. In this denomination, being gay was frowned upon. I went through my late adolescent years and early life trying to figure out who I was. Being brought up in a faith foundation, I found myself fighting to figure out who I was and how to pray to God. What was wrong with me? I found myself always asking for God to send me that sign, you know, like in the movies, how you get the sign from God. Well, it didn't happen. I never did ever receive that sign until I moved to Calgary. With a friend of mine from school, we moved in together, and that is where I found my wife, Shauna. And we've been together for almost 26 years now. When I first moved to Calgary, I was still going to church, and the friends that I had made at that church were not accepting of our relationship. So I then decided to leave the church. And when I left, I was very upset and very confused. I knew deep down that I was loved by God, but I also at the same time felt like I was not loved. If I cannot be a Christian and follow my faith, what am I to do? So for the longest time, I accept praying to God and having that relationship with God on my own and thought that that would just be enough. But it wasn't. This is when my partner, after quite a few years, had been talking about community and what we needed. And church, we found, was one of those communities that was really, truly missing out from our list. I happened to be doing hair at a wonderful place, and it was a United Church in Calgary. And I noticed the bride colors being presented when I first walked into those doors. I had asked what this was all about. Like, why would a church have pride colors in them? Well, someone had told me that this church was an affirming church and that this meant that it was a very inclusive church to everyone. This was one of the many reasons why displaying colors or symbols like such as the flag or even our beautiful new symbol here is very important for people to know that where they're walking into is a safe space. But still, I was still very leery because how is this possible? Here, I had spent most of my life thinking that I was not the same as others, and I was not loved the same as others from God. As my wife and I started going through our first affirming church, we could not believe how at home we felt. We were finally at a place where we could ask questions and feel safe, knowing that I am being not judged because of who I am or who I am married to. I was part of this, I then started being part of the affirming community, and now I'm a student minister, loving the fact that I have found my love with God and have been called to being part of the justice to all who have been marginalized by religion. So I ask all of you that when you look at the verse 26 of the scripture reading that we had just heard, and it says, if one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it. So let's remember that when we have the opportunity to help someone out who is going through that crossroads in their life, please reach out and help that person, to help them find God, and so that we can all rejoice together. Thank you.
So we're all going to rise as we're able, and we're going to sing. I don't even, what song are we singing? Oh, sorry, because I have something totally different here. So I'm glad you guys know what you're doing. So please stand up.
One of the greatest places we can look to learn sing together. Make full the circle of God, each cosmic hue, every creature's way, all form the beauty of this vast array, making full the circle of God. Stay as you are.
Blessed are you all who stand at the crossroads, giving yourself permission to stay suspended in the questions. Blessed are you gathered what you need to move forward in this new awareness. May the peace of Christ go with you as you discern where God is leading you. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you here today. And I think it's a little cooler in this space, so hopefully it'll stay that way throughout the day. One of the things that we do when we come together is we get to know each other. We get to know the wider church. And so one of the privileges that we have
Oh.
is to spend some time today with General Counsel, Executive Minister. And the hope for that is that you'll learn a little bit about the work of the General Counsel Office, get to know some of the staff, and also know about some of the work that they're doing. So Japhet is going to speak with us today. Born in Zambia and educated in Zambia, Ireland, and South Africa. Reverend Dr. Japhet, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask. How do I say it? Yeah, Lovo. Now resides in Toronto, Canada, and serves as an executive minister for the Church and Mission Unit for the United Church of Canada. Japhet previously served as an ordained minister for the Epworth Pastoral Charge in Newfoundland. He also served as General Secretary for the Council of Churches in Zambia, executive staff at the All Africa Conference of Churches based in Nairobi, senior lecturer and head of the theology department at the Presbyterian University of East Africa, national moderator of the Reformed Church in Zambia, among other senior managerial positions. He holds a PhD in practical theology from the University of Stellenbosch in South Africa. Japhet's personal vision is to be a transformative agent and a facilitator by building bridges that liberate and unite voices of sacred defiance. While transforming history, he seeks to share his Christian faith by actively getting engaged in transforming history and working to end oppression by instigating, inspiring, and participating in acts of justice. He believes in life before death. We're so privileged to have you here. It's such a great honor to work alongside you in the work of the General Counsel, and we're just so grateful that you made the journey. Thanks.
Hello, good morning. It's so good to be with you today. Love drew me to the United Church of Canada. Justice drew me to the United Church of Canada. And the fact that the United Church of Canada is able to allow me to be me and express myself as an African Christian living in Canada, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I just love to be in this space. And so I'm so privileged and so blessed to be with you today that I can share a few words about some of the things that we do. There's so much to share about the General Counsel Office, but I just want to narrow down to the work that we do in this unit called the Church in Mission Unit. Friends, the United Church of Canada is a community of hope. It is a community of hope. It's a vibrant and vital church with both a purpose and a vision. And about that, we should be excited. We know that we live in a time of rapid change in religious life, and that there are great inequities between peoples and collective harm to our earth community. And as a church, we know that we have sometimes been complicit in injustice. And yet we have this hope. We have this hope. We believe that we continue to be called to be witness in love and justice to the liberating and healing Christ who was risen. And together we strive towards repentance, we strive towards repair, we strive towards right relations with all peoples and the planet. And therefore, our call and vision, which the General Counsel adopted for us, helps us to think about what we can be, the possibility. And it is possible. So as I said, the Church and Mission Unit has 3 collaborative staff teams. The Church in Partnership, Identity and Mission, and then there's the refugees and leadership and administration. So these three, the Church in Partnership, covers our global partnership work. There we are. So those three, the Church in Partnership, that's where we have our global partnership work. And I'll take you on a very fast journey just around the globe, just to share with you the things we are doing to share love, the things we are doing as a church to try and mend the world, to be there in those spaces where people are seeking for justice, to be there in those spaces where people are crying out for reconciliation. And so the Church and Mission Unit has its submission. It provides support and leadership, the next slide, to the United Church of Canada to participate. Thank you. I hope I'll know how to do these things. The green button, eh? All right, I hope that goes. Thank you. So the Church and Mission Unit provides support and leadership to the United Church of Canada to participate in God's mission of justice, this mission of peace and transformation in the world. And usually this is in response to God's invitation in partnership. So it's not so much about that the Church of God has a mission in the world, but that the God of mission has a church. And we participate with people's movements, sometimes even with non-government organizations, temples, and other facilities. And of course, we are operating under the broader call to the church. I don't know if we got the video at this point. No, okay, all right. So it's under those three: the deep spirituality, bold discipleship, and daring justice. This is the broader call to the church, that we might grow deep in our spirituality. Oh, how I love the divine. I courageously say how I love Jesus, because I think it's from that depth, with the love for Jesus, that we are able to have disciples who can move in daring justice ministries. And the broader theme, again, of course, it's about those 5 things that the General Council Office has approved, and GC 44 did approve the 5 strategic objectives, and I'm lead on that one on top: emboldening justice, collaborating to mend the church and the world. And the other pieces are there on leadership, on the common good, on climate integrity, on strengthening invitation, and also on indigenous pathways. And of course, this is our call, which is well articulated in the vision that we have, that as the United Church, we believe that we are called by God as disciples of Jesus to be bold, connected, evolving church of diverse, courageous, hope-filled communities united in deep spirituality, inspiring worship, and daring justice. And not those words, connected. We are connected and we are united and uniting, meaning that we are a church that is evolving and a church that seeks to change at all times as we listen to the Spirit. What is God saying for such a time as we are in? And so a few things about SIM then. We have about 90 global partnerships. We have about 90 global partnerships, and these 90 global partnerships does not explain where our reach goes. Because, for example, we participate in ACT Alliance. And ACT Alliance has over 130 members and organizations which work in 120 countries. So, for example, We may not have partners in Syria, but when the tragedy happened in Syria, through ACT Alliance and other members, we have participated to respond to things around in Syria. We may not be in Ukraine, but with partners through ACT Alliance, we have responded. We may not have partners in certain parts of the world, and so we ecumenically work. We network with others to influence and to share love in the world. Or for example, we are members in the Canadian Food Grains Bank. And in there are 15 church-based agencies. And together we represent nearly 30 Christian denominations made up of 12,000 individual congregations across Canada. So our participation in some of the ecumenical spaces gives us a wonderful advantage of sharing the love of God in places where we probably are not there. But through the contributions that communities of faith make, through the donations that our people make into those spaces. So for example, I sit on the board of Canadian Food Grains Bank. And last year, the United Church Communities of Faith contributed more than $1.3 million to this agenda of ending global hunger through the bank. And we're able to share into that justice ministry. And that's my poor map just showing you some of the countries where we have direct partnerships, like in Colombia and Cuba and El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, Nicaragua, in Africa and Middle East. I've just come from the Middle East. I was in Lebanon and Jordan to meet some of our partners who have been hosting Palestinian refugees for 73 years. And some of the stories I saw and heard were heart-wrenching. For example, somewhere in Beirut, one church, I won't name the church, they allowed that the refugees can build up a refugee camp. But to constantly remind them that this is not their home, they are not allowed to build permanently. And so when the roof started leaking, they sought permission that they can change the roof. And this church said, no, you can't change the roof because it will make you feel you are supposed to be here permanently. So they don't change the roof. And so what do? They get some plastic something to put on top of their roof. And they have been in that state for how long? 73 years. 73 Palestinian refugees seeking justice. 73. I said, Lord, have mercy. Why? Why should we do this to fellow human beings? But our partners are there. They are there and protecting these refugees and ensuring that their daily needs are met. We have worked in Angola and Congo, DRC, Israel, Kenya, the Palestine territory. I didn't go into Israel. You know what the story is? I couldn't be given an Israeli visa. They said my passport was too full. They needed enough pages. I had 2 pages remaining. I said, honestly, can't you put the visa on one of the 2 pages remaining? And they said, sorry, sir, we need enough pages. But if you know the politics around that world, you may understand. No problem. I'll get a bigger passport and go next time. Other parts of the world, as I said, Latin and American Caribbean mission, 27 partners there in 8 countries, and helping people to access food and sustainable agricultural products, providing education, building sustainable and safe water, and of course, human rights. If we move on to Asia mission and service partners. I actually took that picture of those wonderful women in India. 22 partners in 5 countries, plus 5 partners in Japan, and those women in an organization called ASTA. They are empowered by their leadership, and they begin to challenge the duty bearers, because the Indian justice system is such that widows can access some funding from the government. So all those people you say are widows, they call their member of parliament and say, why didn't you tell us about the funding that is available in the government? We need to be paid, and we need our pay now. And if the member of parliament tries to behave in a different way, they tell him, we won't give you the votes next time. And he enables them to access those funds. So all we've done is to empower these women to know their rights. Then they do the rest. The next thing they say to the member of parliament, we need a hospital here. And those politicians, they put up the hospital. Next time they say, we want a road that links our village to that village. And what did the United Church do? Just empowered them to know their rights and to raise their voice. And they do it. In Africa and Middle East, we have 27 partners in 8 countries. And again, there you have struggles around human rights. In that area, you have issues around land and access to land. That was Moderator Carmen with me in the Philippines and meeting the different networks of partners in the Philippines who are seeking justice in their own countries. We are also connected to global ecumenical mission and service partners. We have 7 global partners. Now, when I talk about global, we are talking about organizations like the World Council of Churches. We are in that space. World Methodist Council, we are in that space. The World Communion of Reformed Churches, we are in that space. And all these pieces are linked to the church in mission. But we also do work around identity and mission. In that picture is one of the regional executive ministers, Faith, again, on another trip, working with partners in the Philippines and on issues to do with LGBTQI. We stop there for international purposes. And then in Canada, we add 2+, etc. Striving to support the core identity of the United Church of Canada and to partner with others in perceiving and enacting God's mission in the world. And some of the things, again, in that unit, we work on racial equity, climate justice, 2S LGBTQIA+ rights, ethno-cultural networks, so Black Clergy Network, Korean Clergy Network, Filipino Clergy Network, etc., different ethno-cultural networks, and diasporic communities of faith. The communities of faith that are being planted in Canada. People are coming and maybe wanting to worship and pray in their language. And so we have Zimbabwean communities of faith, Filipino communities of faith. We try to help and network these pieces. And of course, issues around refugees, migrants, and immigrants. The United Church is a sponsorship agreement holder. And so with a staff of only 2.5, we are able to help resettle some people seeking refugee status in this country. And it's a lot of work for a staff of 2.5. It's a lot of work. I sat down with my staff to find out, how do you do it? To process one case, our staff needs not less than 88 hours. And last year they did more than 250 cases. How did they do it? It means they're working on weekends. They're working overtime during night times. Friends, there are many other areas I could share about the work that we do, but I hope that gives you a glimpse of the work to share love and the work to share justice and to participate where God is at work. Where God is at work. Comments or questions before I sit down? Thank you very much. There are no questions and comments. Thank you very much for all the support that you continue. Oh, there's a question there. Yes. The areas where it is viewed as God not being at work. An example. Thank you. By the way, when we say being in places where God is at work does not mean that we only work with church-related organizations. For example, the Indian organization I named called ASTA, it's a not faith organization. So all we see is there's work for promoting human dignity. And because they are promoting human dignity, even if they don't believe, we support and work with them. Because at the end of the day, what are we seeking? One thing, that all might participate in abundant life. And abundant life starts here. Thank you very much.
I just want to thank you so much because I'm concerned about the Palestinians and Lebanon. Those are two things that you mentioned. And we have a Syrian family in our community in Coronation. I don't know if we sponsored them or not, but the breadwinner, the only one that was working for that family, a mother, grandmother, and children, and he died. He was 44 years old and he died. And so we're taking up money to support that family. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the work that you're doing. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Japheth. So we're going to transition now into a bit of business, and we're going to start that with just giving a bit of information about how our governance system is working now in Chinook Winds. We've been in this new structure for some time, but it's always good to have a bit of a refresher on how we're organized and how we're doing things. So this is just a quick reminder of that. So when Chinook Winds region was formed, there was a commission, and that commission was established to determine how the region was going to organize itself or set itself up. It was decided that we would operate using the principles of policy governance. And what that is a leadership framework that's based on the work of John Carver. And it's gained popularity as a management tool for churches and other nonprofit organizations. During my sabbatical, I took a course around nonprofit leadership and governance, and this was one of the models that they were presenting as being very effective to work with not-for-profits. At its core, policy governance is a system that helps organizations clarify their goals and objectives while also setting up clear lines of accountability and decision-making processes. So one way to kind of understand this is to use an analogy of a journey. So the role of the executive is first to decide where we want to go. What's the destination? And then the regional council through its executive would be focusing on what is that destination, both now and then some years into the future. And those some years into the future is the important part of the work that the executive is doing. We also have to decide what's important to us. What are the values? Do we want to get there using electric cars because we want to protect the environment? What are the things that are really important to us that would inform our decision making? So once you have those things established, it's given to staff to figure out how we're going to get there. So staff do the research. They look at the map. They determine what's the best route to get there. They look at whether or not we should be stopping at different places along the way. We figure out how we're going to do that. We decide what committees or volunteer structures need to be in place to support the work, and we put that in place. The other role of the executive is to set some limits. So they'll say to the staff, well, while you're on that journey, you shouldn't break the law. You shouldn't speed. And we don't think you should go out and buy an expensive sports car to get there. So they'll set some parameters around within which we have to function. And the idea is that puts guardrails along the road, along the way. Those limits give the staff freedom to make decisions within a certain framework. Okay, so I won't take the analogy any further, but over the last couple of years, the executive has been working with Dan Hotchkiss, and you heard from Dan Hotchkiss last year at our regional meeting. He's a governance consultant, and he's helped us develop the policies that the region is using right now. These policies outline our purpose, values, and goals, and they also set the limits and expectations for those who carry out the work, the staff. The board then delegates authority to the executive minister, who is me, and then I make an operational plan to carry out the work within those established parameters. So when in the previous governance system, what you will remember as Alberta Northwest Conference, there were a lot of decisions being made about how we did things. So you were voting on more things. That's why you'll find it that now we're doing less voting, because what we're doing is establishing those guardrails and those principles, and the day-to-day decisions are being made either by the committees or by the staff. In our work with Dan Hotchkiss, and who you met last year, he emphasized the need to engage in ongoing learning and development, as well as a commitment to being transparent and having good communication and accountability. So he has really encouraged the executive to be thinking about the future, considering where we want to be in the next 3 to 5 years, and to think about and identify what the big questions are for our time right now, and what we need to be wrestling with as we start planning or preparing for emergence in the future. Part of the way that we do our work as a region is that we do have a number of committees, and of course we have the executive. Right now we have some vacancies on some of those groups, particularly on executive, and we would like to be electing some new executive members at this meeting this weekend. So we're inviting you to think about how you might become part of the work at the regional level. And there's been some papers handed around, I think, the green papers handed around to help you reflect a little bit on what are the areas that you might like to work with. Tammy Allen is the chair of nominations. I don't know if you're here this morning. Yes, can you stand up? And so if you've got questions about ways that you might serve within the wider church, please talk to her or to me or Joanne. Anybody on the executive would be happy to have a conversation about what it's like to serve in that capacity. Thank you very much.
Also included on that green sheet on the second page at the bottom, very selfishly, I've included this one for myself. Calgarians, I make an appeal to you specifically. You will be hosting the General Council meeting in the centennial year of the United Church of Canada, 2025. I'm appealing to you. We need local arrangement people. Let the rest of the country not say we did not offer hospitality to them. Let's put on the greatest, the granddaddy of them all, the biggest General Council there ever was. So Calgarians, please, I need your help to do this. Friends, let us move into our listening phase of business, and we will begin with Remit 1. It appears in your agenda book. I forgot to write down what page it was on. I think I have it on the clicker. I put it on the clicker. No, I did. It's on page 38, page 38 of your agenda book. We'll be beginning with a video introduction of this remit that we've received from General Counsel. Do you have a video? Yep. Okay, well, let's do a review of what we're going to do in listening time. So remember, we're asking clarifying questions. We're not debating the merits of any of these proposals. We just are asking questions to understand what is being asked of us. So when we get for the remits, we'll just be asking, what does this mean? Oh, what does that mean? Do we have a video? Okay, we'll work on it. Well, then I'm going to talk what I was going to talk. Fine, I'm just going to do it myself. Video will come later. Someone I know edited a book and had this very handy little chart in it. If you all click on there. So you see on the shaded portion that's on the left. Oh, they don't want me to do that. That's fine. We said we'll be non-anxious about things arriving to us. That's fine. Can I have my slide back at least? Okay, there we got a video. Here it comes.
Hello, my name is Sarah Stratton, and I work as a Reconciliation and Indigenous Justice Animator at the General Counsel Office of the United Church of Canada.
Hello, my name is Adele Halliday, and I work as the Anti-Racism and Equity Lead at
Hello, my name is Sarah Stratton, and I work as a Reconciliation and Indigenous Justice Animator at the General Counsel Office of the United Church of Canada.
Hello, my name is Adele Halliday, and I work as the Anti-Racism and Equity Lead at the General Counsel Office of the United Church of Canada. We are among the General Counsel staff who share responsibility for answering your questions about the remit. And to date, we have received quite a few questions.
Almost all of them have come from the non-Indigenous church, and they share some commonalities. In this video, we would like to specifically address the non-Indigenous church and help to further respond to the questions that have emerged.
We have received questions on what this remit is about.
The
current
back
remit
through the looking
question
glass.
asks to remove structural barriers that will prevent the establishment of a self-determining Indigenous church within the United Church of Canada.
We have received questions about where the remit came from. The proposal that prompted the remit was sent to the 44th General Council in 2022 from the National Indigenous Council. It is NIC 01, Restructuring of the Indigenous Church. This proposal named a vision guided by the calls to the church.
Apparently the
caretakers
online
of
folks
our
have
Indigenous
sound,
circle.
if that helps for people in the backs. Oh. Okay. May we start at the beginning for this, please? All right, a video for remit 1.
My name is Sarah Stratton. I work as a Reconciliation and Indigenous Justice Animator, General Counsel of the United Church of Canada.
Hello, my name is Adele Halliday, and I work as an Anti-Racism and Equity Lead at the General Counsel Office of the United Church of Canada. We are among the General Counsel staff who share responsibility for answering your questions about the remit. And to date, we have received quite a few questions.
Almost all of them come from the non-Indigenous church, and they share some commonalities. In this video, we would like to specifically address the non-Indigenous church and help further respond to the questions that have been raised.
We have received questions on what this remit is about. The current remit question asks to remove structural barriers that will prevent the establishment of a self-determining Indigenous church within the United Church of Canada.
We have received questions about where the remit came from. The proposal that prompted the remit was sent to the 44th General Council in 2022 from the National Indigenous Council. It is NIC 01, Restructuring of the Indigenous Church. This proposal named a vision guided by the calls to the church of the caretakers of our Indigenous circle. This vision names two parts of our church, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, working side by side. It also recommended the identification and removal of all the structural barriers to developing and sustaining an autonomous Indigenous church within the United Church of Canada.
We have received questions about why a remit process is needed to respond to the proposal. When any requested change in church structure will alter the basis of union of the manual of the United Church of Canada, as this will, then a Category 3 remit is required. The General Secretary therefore proposed GS 10, Living into Reconciliation, which asks the church to give preemptive remit approval for whatever the Indigenous church determines as its place in the United Church, and to eliminate the need for further remits approval.
We have also received questions about the voting process. This remit requires a vote from every regional council and each community of faith that is a pastoral charge. The vote is for the governing body, such as the church council or the board. It does not need to be a full vote of the congregation.
We have also received several questions asking exactly what the new Indigenous church will look like and how it will function. These questions have asked how it will be funded. Questions have been asked wanting to know what allows members and communities of faith to identify as part of the Indigenous church. Questions have been asked about the alignment of policy, doctrine, theology, liturgical practices, and sacraments.
Some questions have been asked about how this national Indigenous organization will be in relationship with the regions. Questions have also been asked about whether Indigenous peoples want to leave the United Church of Canada. If this remit is approved, it would not immediately create a new Indigenous church. Rather, the remit asks for the removal of barriers in order to give Indigenous people in the church the time and space they need to define their own future in relationship with the rest of the United Church.
In the meantime, the details about policy, practices, and overall function remain unknown. There are some questions, such as those of finances and many of the other issues raised, that we simply will not have the answers to until the process and the accompanying conversations take place. Even though there is uncertainty about some of these details, there is certainty and clarity about one important aspect: being in relationship.
The proposal from the National Indigenous Council clarified that asking for the removal of structural barriers did not mean that a relationship was ending. The proposal describes a long relationship between the church and Indigenous peoples and expressed a desire to set aside the notion of mission and truly move towards being partners in God's call to all the earth. It notes the importance of a continuing conversation between the National Indigenous Council and the General Council as the new structures are formed and the relationship continues.
The National Indigenous Council will also report back to the 45th General Council in 2025 on its progress and on the next phases of work. When the United Church adopted the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples as a framework for reconciliation in 2016, we acknowledge that, quote, "We are not sure what lies ahead as we deepen our commitment to a new identity, a new relationship, and a new way of being," unquote. We also as church acknowledge that a new relationship is waiting and we turn our faces towards it.
There are some things that we do not know. What we do know is that a continued, renewed relationship awaits. We hope that this video has offered helpful additional background information for you as you reflect on the remit question. You can also find the study guide for this remit, links to additional background information, links to the two proposals that we have named in this video, and also the voting cards on the website for the 44th General Council at www.gc44.ca.
Thank you for your participation in this important decision-making process.
Maybe return to the listening phase PowerPoint, please. How about now? There we go. Thank you. All right. As I said, someone I know wrote a book. If we look on this left side, the shaded portion represents the Indigenous church within the structure of the United Church. So at the bottom, you'll see communities of, oh no, see, I did exactly what you said I would do, Alan, I'm sorry. At the bottom is the communities of faith. So you'll see that there are Indigenous communities of faith and there are settler communities of faith. And then as they go up to the regional council, you'll see that they dip a toe into the Indigenous church as well. So they have what the technical term we refer to that is called dual belonging. So those communities of faith have belonging to their regional council that they geographically exist in, as well as the national Indigenous organization. So what this REMA is being asked is that the shaded side of this chart, it will be able to be structured in a way that Indigenous peoples determine for themselves. So in the manual, we say you must have this, you must have that to be a regional council. In this remit, Indigenous people would decide what that looks like, and the rest of the national church would not dictate how they must structure their national Indigenous organization. So for the structural changes to the manual, they are listed in your on page 38 of your agenda book. They're here. You'll probably not be able to read them, but these are the changes that will be made to the manual. Page 40, thank you, pardon me. Page 40 is where the manual changes are found in your agenda book. I'll ask the presiding officer to initiate clarifying questions in the listening phase. Oh, yes, we need front mics. I'll repeat. No, it's just, we're just one. So, yes, clarifying questions. I'll say specifically for the online folks, if you'd like to ask a question, we'll make sure that you are plugged into us here for the folks that are in person. So even the online folks, you're able to ask a question for clarification as well. So again, I'll ask the presiding officer to initiate those questions.
All right, we'll initiate those questions. We'll just take one of our mics and move it over there.
No, just stay with me.
Oh.
Ask and identify.
Don't forget to identify yourself and your community of faith. Thanks.
Sue Broderick, Parkdale United Church in Calgary. Having heard the video, an answer or question of clarification that they said they don't have, but it makes it very difficult for congregations or governance bodies of the congregations to approve or not approve this, is the financial impact as we're, a struggling congregation across the country, or a nomination across the country. And so I'm wondering how we're going to get some of those answers prior to communities of faith having to vote, because our community of faith has already had a brief discussion about this and are going to go into detail in the fall. and it came across pretty loud and clear. How can we make a decision if we don't know what that impact of this is going to do to the whole church?
So the clarifying question would be, what is the financial impact that we need to have? An online question?
I'll invite Trina to make a response for that.
You want me to respond to
Yeah,
the financial
all-
impact?
all of them.
We don't know the answer to that yet. So, but that's something that will require further work. Go ahead. So we have a question from online. Diane Paley, St. Thomas. How large is the existing National Indigenous Organization? Will Indigenous people have a choice of which congregation they would like to associate with? For example, is it okay to continue coming to our church?
My answering? Okay, I'll attempt to answer that. So this is for Indigenous communities of faith specifically, so not individual members within the church. So those that fall into the structure. So communities of faith, as we said, already have a dual belonging. They belong to the geographical region that they are in, but also a dual belonging to the National Indigenous Organization. And what's being proposed in this remit is a change to the structure of the National Indigenous Council and how they structure their governance specifically. So about individual membership for Indigenous peoples in congregations, this is not does not deal with. It's about those communities of faith and how they are governed in the National Indigenous Organization.
And can I just make one point of clarification? The dual belonging is actually a choice that Indigenous communities of faith have. So they can choose to have dual belonging, or they can choose to be part of the Indigenous church or part of the region. And in Chinook Winds region, the two Indigenous ministries that we have actually not made the decision. So we can't say that they have dual belonging at this point.
Right. Yes. Just the general structure.
Yeah.
I'm talking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Hello, Samuel Gronberg, Chinook Winds Regional Council, retained on the roll. You cannot hear me?
Ice cream cone.
All right, Samuel Gronberg, Chinook Winds Regional Council member, retained on the roll. My question comes on the theology and doctrine side. I'm wondering which of our Indigenous theologians are involved in conversation. Is theology, interfaith, interchurch involved in dialogue about how this remit might impact theological futures in the Indigenous church? I think the structural stuff is a no-brainer, but just a question about that side. Yeah.
So the question is, who's involved in the decision making around this? And so this is a remit that's been brought forward by the Indigenous Church itself. So it was went through the Elders Council and the National Indigenous Council. So the non-Indigenous church is not terribly involved in that. It was a process through the Indigenous church itself. But Japheth, do you know if the Theology and Interfaith has commented on this?
I think they have generally indicated that it will be a piece of self-determining work, which we cannot preempt. So we should already begin to think of decolonizing our approaches. They will do it themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Can you please identify yourself?
Lavera, Goodeye, Coronation, and Veteran Communities of Faith, also Castor. I think that this resolution is very important for settlers we have to learn that we have a responsibility to be accepting.
I'm gonna rule
So-
that out of order. Sorry, we're not debating the merits of the remit. We're just asking clarifying questions at this moment. We will have discussion later.
There'll be an opportunity for this comment during the
Okay,
discussion
Then
phase.
my question is, how are we going to reach out to the settlers?
Well,
Is
as
your-
part of this gathering here, like we're doing this here. That's where this information is being shared. And then all of your communities of faith as well will also be invited to also vote on this remit also. So they should receive information in the study guide that they'll receive on the remit.
I'm thinking of the difficulty that I, as a settler ally, will have in encouraging my congregation. That's what I'm thinking about.
So there's a study package that's being sent out to congregations. It's already been sent. So if you haven't received it, you should begin looking for it. And hopefully coming here and participating in this process of education will allow you to take information back to your community of faith that you've learned through the conversations that are happening here.
Rachel Naden from Knox United Church in Drumheller. How many churches or communities of faith in the United Church are considered Indigenous communities of faiths? How many congregations are we talking about so that we know how many congregations could possibly be impacted by this change?
I actually don't know the national number. No, Tony, do you know? No. So there's 2 in this region. There's 11 in Pacific Mountain, but I don't know the numbers for other regions. My apologies. About how many people attend the National Spiritual Gathering? So the National Spiritual Gathering is a gathering of all of the Indigenous communities of faith and elders that happens every few years. And this will be discussed there as well. So the impacted communities of faith are in conversation.
Hello, I'm Shane. I am the student minister for Knox United in Tabor and St. Paul's in Milk River. My question, or just want clarifying information on, is this would allow for the National Indigenous Church to have autonomy in the Indigenous students and education for Indigenous students to determine how they go about that, their education, what they learn. So as an Indigenous student within the current structure, I'm just wondering if that is what will happen too, of giving autonomy to the Indigenous church.
Actually, the Indigenous Office of Vocations is already autonomous, so they don't need this to pass in order for that to happen. Again, Indigenous candidates can choose which Office of Vocations they want, so you can be in the Indigenous or the non-Indigenous, but most Indigenous candidates do come through the Indigenous Office of Vocation.
Hello, Carrie from Hannah, Alberta. One question my congregation had that I couldn't answer was one about accountability. If they're working under the umbrella of the United Church and the authority of the United Church, are they accountable in some way? Just
So this would effectively set up the Indigenous church with the same powers and authority of the General Council. So they would be completely independent and self-determining.
But still corresponding with General Council. We should say
Still
that.
part of the United Church, yeah. And in relationship with the non-Indigenous church, but it wouldn't be a hierarchical relationship.
Okay, give me a thumbs up. You feel comfortable with your knowledge of this remit? Okay, we'll say we're somewhat comfortable. Very good. Let's move on to proposals. I'll invite, oh, sorry.
Just another sort of clarification of that, where is accountability? And I was just asking Trina, is the moderator of both churches? Your response?
No, they would have their own moderator.
All right, let's move to proposals. I'll invite the members of the Youth Council who have made this proposal to come forward, Tamika, Rhonda, and Jamal. So you can find a copy of remit, or sorry, not remit, pardon me, proposal 1. There are 2 copies on each table for you to refer to. So the slides have everything that you have there. So you can move forward on the slide. Do you want to present the proposal? Can I score your notes? Yes, it's all here. And I go ahead by green button. Okay, perfect. So everything that's on here will be on.
Hello, everyone. My name is, whoa, order. I have so much power. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Maupoy. I serve Chinook Winds Regional Council in the area of First Third Ministry. That's children, youth, young adults, camps, and our campus ministries. And I'm one of the staff people that support our amazing members of Youth Council that have created this proposal for us. This is the Supporting the Leadership of Adolescents and Youth, or SLAY, proposal before you today. A little bit of background. Where this is coming from comes from the manual section. If you're familiar with we're all manual nerds. This is about creating balance within our court structure to allow.
Sorry, Chris, I just want to interrupt you. There's a lot of noise in the room and that's distracting. So could we please maintain order in the court? Thank you.
To allow lay members that the council would designate as being needed to respect the balance of ministry, to respect the diversity of our regional council. So the proposal, oh, sorry, I'm going to keep going forward. Wait for it. The motion before you is that Chinook Winds Regional Council of the United Church of Canada at its annual general meeting, so regional meetings like this one, would require that at least 5% of the voting representatives, either online or in person, be 25 years and younger in order to pass a motion for decision. So the hope would be that obviously this would have a lot of implications for us as a regional council. We're not requiring that each community of faith send a representative to regional gatherings that's under the age of 25, but we would strongly encourage you that if we make this a requirement of our regional gatherings, that we might see some structural change in how our regional gatherings are held. For instance, where they fall within the calendar. Very often, church life and the church governance cycle doesn't fit very well with families or with the lives of young people, so we might consider that as well. We might also consider in our individual communities of faith in what ways we're bringing people, young leaders, to be leaders within our regional council and make a more deliberate effort to engage them. So that's the motion that's before us. Again, that it would require that the region have 5% of voting representatives, either online or in person, be under the age of 25 years and younger to pass a motion for decision. If I've done my math correct, online and in person, we have about 150, 170 voting members. That would mean that we would need to have about 7 to 8 of those people be under the age of 25 to pass a motion for decision. So I think we'd like to invite some questions.
So we can move into our listening phase. If you have questions of clarification on this proposal, then please step up to the mic and don't forget to give your name and your community of faith.
Hi,
I'm Rachel from Knox United Church in Drumheller. Would those people who are 25 years and younger need to be confirmed or members of the United Church of Canada in order to vote? Meaning ministers need to start pushing confirmation class.
Well, yes, you should start confirmation class.
But would they need, and would they need to be, like, would they need to be members of the United Church in order to vote?
Yeah, regional representatives, they would need to be elected regional representatives, and regional representatives do need to be members.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Kelly Osgood, Robert McClure United Church in Calgary. I'm wondering if these members would be designated as youth representatives, or if they would be within the number of representatives that a church is already allowed.
The proposal as it reads would mean they would be elected representatives, so they would be regional reps, just like anyone else. One way that could potentially be achieved is through the youth council membership. So it's possible that the youth council membership would be counted among that number for sure. So the answer is it could be either.
But we don't have, I don't know if we used to have youth reps.
No,
I've
in
been
new
around the United
structure,
Church a long time, and at one point somewhere in Canada, conferences had youth reps.
in
Is
the
that
new
here?
structure, there are no youth representatives.
Okay.
But we, as a region, have elected to have a youth council. So the youth council are voting members of the region. That was a decision that we made. But other than that, there's no youth members. So the youth council members would be voting members, and they could count towards the 5%. But any additional members would have to be regional representatives elected by a congregation.
To seek an answer for that question, that would be what discussion time will be for. If you want to offer that feedback back about what you would prefer, how you'd like that resolved, put that in the decision time, please.
Dave Goodwin, Stettler, United Church. I have a question regarding what would happen if you were not able to get 5% of our voting representatives to this meeting under the age of 25. Would this meeting no longer have any effect, and could it no longer pass any motions?
So if we did not meet the 5% of the representatives under 25 years old, it would just mean that you would not be able to pass any motions for decision as a at a regional meeting. So you could still pass motions for education. There would just be no decisions made.
So effectively, you would mean we wouldn't have quorum. So this is making a requirement for quorum. So we wouldn't have quorum, so no decisions could be made.
And Yates LaBerge, Hillhurst United Church. What's the
Okay,
lower
can
limit?
we I can't hear the question. So we need to keep our conversation.
Is there a lower limit for the age? Because adolescence is 10 to 19. So is there a lower limit for this age range?
We have not defined a lower limit, but it would most likely be from the beginning of where youth council starts. So 14 years of age and up.
Cindy Christie Brooks, Fish Creek United Church in Calgary. Will all region representatives be required to disclose their age?
Fair question.
That's a serious question. And is that within our polity?
Regional representatives would not be required to disclose their age.
So the way that would get handled is are you 25 or under box to tick?
Barry Clayton, McDougall, Calgary. I'm just wondering if that policy were in place today, how would it affect today's gathering?
Can we have a show of hands of who's a voting member under the age of 25 present?
He's asking for a show of hands of who in this court is under the age of 25, if they could raise their hands. And their voting members.
So here we have 1, 2. So we would not have quorum, so we would not be able to make any decisions at this general meeting. Who is under 25 who's attending that cannot vote today? Yeah, so if we had everyone in this room who was under 25, if they were voting members, we would have quorum. So we are just asking that each church does their best, makes their best efforts into encouraging youth participation in general meetings to help achieve the 5%.
Hello, Carrie again from Hannah. Rural ministry, we struggle to be heard, and something like this would put all the power in the urban ministry, because rural ministry usually gets 1, maybe 2 reps. So the youth would all be coming from the urban. How are you gonna offset that balance?
So I think that's something that we'll need to take back to ensure that we do have a balance of representation. The comment that I would make, though, is that we might need to pool our regional rep members for rural congregations. So if you have 1 or 2 youth, you might send them to us as members of youth council in order to vote. But the point is well taken.
Samuel Grottenberg, Chinook Winds Regional Council. I'm wondering if we have data on current full members of the United Church of Canada in Chinook Winds who are under the age of 25, or if we might find that data at some point. Yeah.
I do not have that data available. The comment that I'll offer, though, is that what we're looking for through a requirement is that communities of faith will be a part of that work, to ensure that if there's people that they identify in their community of faith that are young people with gifts for leadership, that they'll lift up those leaders and reduce the barriers for them to attend. And that we might consider as a regional council, what are the barriers for our annual general meetings that make it challenging for young people to attend, and make adjustments to remove those barriers.
I'm Margaret McCulley from Medicine Hat. I think this is a worthy thought. It's a worthy proposal. However, coming from a congregation who has.
Sorry, this is only a clarifying question. We'll discuss the proposal at the discussion phase. So do you have a question to clarify what this proposal is about?
Okay, no, I don't.
Sue Broderick, Parkdale United in Calgary. Are at present, our youth council members,
Well, there's no.
members of the United Church at this point?
They are voting members of the regional council. Their power through it to be voting members comes from the executive. They're an extension.
So for clarification, they're not necessarily gone the process of becoming members of the United Church Canada, which you're saying the other reps as our role is members of the United, but youth council will be separate from that.
That's correct.
There's an online question. Would passing this potentially exclude others over the age of 25?
I don't believe it will exclude people under the age of 25 from attending. No. I think the point that we're trying to make is that for 150 plus representatives of our communities of faith, that in order to ensure balance, that multiple generations are heard at the table, making it a requirement reduces those barriers in order to create that balance of voices at the regional council gathering. And we're talking about 8 people for our current list of, like, if we're taking this meeting as an example, that would be 8 people under the age of 25 that are either a member of youth council or a member of your community of faith that are here to represent the interests of that community of faith. As your regional person who's in charge of First Third ministry and breathing life into those ministries, I would argue that if we can't attract 8 people under the age of 25 to our regional meetings, we might be in trouble.
So in the discussion phase, we might be able to have some conversation about how we would technically make this work or not work.
Annie, it's LaBerge, Hillhurst United Church. Are we talking about the people that, that actually register to vote, or register for this gathering altogether?
So voting members are elected by their community of faith as a regional representative. So
But they would need
either
to
they would
register
need
for
to be
this event.
elected to youth
Yeah.
council by the region, or they would need to be elected as a regional rep by their congregation. So to the earlier question about excluding others, if a congregation was a smaller rural congregation that was only allowed one representative, if that representative was under 25, that would be their representative. So they couldn't have two because one of them was under 25.
Let me clarify. If they did have a representative under 25 and they did not register for this event, this specific event online or in person, because this is a midweek event during, these people are primarily in school on a lot of these things. So has that been taken into consideration that under 25 people are primarily in school during a Thursday, Friday?
So that's the structural element that we're hoping this will take into, this motion will force us to consider. So you're correct that May is a time when a lot of our young people are still in school or about to graduate or have all kinds of recitals. It's the end of the year, it's still school programming. So we're hoping that a motion like this would make it require us to consider the barriers to accessing these meetings and that we might need to make adjustments. Because if they're not registered, they are not voting.
Are there any further clarifying questions about this proposal?
Rachel from Knox and Drumheller, is there a maximum amount of people that are allowed on youth council?
Yes.
So on the youth council for each region, there's a maximum of 6 representatives. So for example, for Pacific Mountain region, there's 4, and the maximum would be 6. And then it's the same for the Chinook region.
And just a note of clarification, the youth council is unique to Pacific Mountain and Chinook Winds. It's an initiative that was taken here, so there aren't other youth councils across the country.
Just one quick question that there are a couple, although it's a rare.
What is your name and your community of faith?
Brenda Fox, Office of Vocation Minister for Chinook Winds. Although rare, there are a couple of ordered people who are under 25. Would that be counted as part of this or?
I believe it would be counted into the 5%.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Kevin. First Avenue, Fifth Avenue, United Church. Have thoughts been placed like to make this happen sometime in the future? So the vote's done today, but it doesn't take effect for a period of time, because as you say, there are other things that may have to be put into place, such as timing of this conference, that might take a little while to put into place.
So is your question, what is the procedure from here and how long would it take to be put in place?
Well, kind of.
As a
yes.
clarifying question?
Yeah, as a clarifying question.
Okay. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we would have to do it.
This motion would be in place for 2025, so it would not have any effect for the remainder of this gathering.
Oh, sorry, is it 2024?
It would be in place for 2024.
So in order to implement this, there's some work that would need to be done to determine what we're allowed to do as a region, because we actually don't have control over who communities of faith elect. to be regional council members. So the only way that the region can add members to the role is for the purposes of balance. So that's why you've got that reference to balance coming in. And so we have to just do some research around what we're actually allowed to do and determine that before we could implement.
Okay, one at a time.
Dave Holmes, Knox, no, not Knox, St. Andrews and Lacombe. Does the presenting group have a vision for what a meeting might look like that would facilitate this kind of thing happening?
Okay, well, I'm just to say, we're going to answer this question and then we need to call the order of the day because we need to move on. This is the end of the listening phase once we get our response. Oh.
Okay, what this motion would look like moving forward would be potentially moving the date of the gatherings to a more suitable time to young people and students so that it doesn't fall among exam seasons and missing classes. And making sure that we do bring forward people from communities of faith to be elected representatives, and electing people to young people to youth council in order to have their voices heard.
I think as well for our communities of faith, it's what are the ways in which we as communities of faith are going to uplift the local people, like local young people in our midst, and what are we going to do to empower them as well? So we don't know the far-reaching implications of this, but we hope that it is a structural thing, therefore we'll respond to that change.
All right, we do have another proposal which we will not be able to address right now. We'll make time in the schedule later for that second proposal. And we call order of the day for this section. And invite Cameron to come and give us another inspiring session, so that there'll be 50 youth that want to be representatives because we're so dynamic and alive.
While Cameron is making her way up here, just for your information, there are 52 Indigenous communities of faith in the United Church.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. Now for an entire shift of mindset, right? You all are doing such good and difficult work. It's hard. Discernment in this age is difficult, isn't it? It's quite a challenge. So maybe it's appropriate then that we talk about the art of being lost. In an age with such extraordinary disruption and such interesting questions before us, it's difficult to figure out how to make good choices, how to move in directions that are faithful and that promote a kind of future that we all want to embrace. So today, what we're going to play with at a speed that I will regret ahead of time, but I want to introduce you to a methodology that I began studying some years ago through my work with the United Nations, and a team from UNESCO was working with global policymakers around climate change. And they were trying to get bureaucrats to imagine climate policy for future generations. Can you even imagine? I would just need to be in the fetal position under a table. So as they were working with these groups, they were realizing that the scale of imagination was too small for them to actually achieve the kind of vision that they were hoping to be able to dream together. That there was an existence among them, what we would call, or what I've started to call, a poverty of imagination, which is a conditional reality in the human experience right now. Because as we talked about yesterday, that for the first time in human history, we're actually facing existential crisis, right? As Jean Houston said, we've developed the capacity to destroy ourselves without the wisdom to know not to do so. So our scale of imagination now matters more than at any other time in human history. So this group of researchers with UNESCO worked together to create a kind of imaginal process that helped to break through that poverty of imagination by uncovering the blind spots that each one of us carries within ourselves, biases that help us from or prevent us from seeing opportunities that are in front of us. So we're going to work at lightning speed together through a process. I want to tell you the byproduct of the process, whatever insights we gain, will be interesting. They'll be informative to us, but that's not the point. What I'm actually trying to teach, in a sense, is the method itself, the capability of the imaginal process, so that you can take it back to the spaces in which you work and back into with the people that you gather with, and maybe use this process or one like it in those spaces. So well, let me ask this question. If you were to think about the future, I'm just going to ask you to think, just the story that you tell yourself about the future. Where would you put yourself? So let's imagine that you have this little pin. That's your pin right there in the middle. Would you say that the future is bright or the future is bleak? Now, this is just the story that's going on in your head. It doesn't matter what's in my head. It's just the story in your head. Do you think the future is bright or do you think the future is bleak? Do you think that there are, or can you influence the future? Do you have agency? Or do you think that there are greater forces at play? Does this make sense? All right. So if I was to ask, let's just say for a show of hands, let's see who thinks that greater forces are at play and the future is bleak. Do you just think about, yeah, 1, 2, we got a handful. Yeah, good. So these are the people who all think we're screwed. So we should all eat a lot of carbs and just live it up. Great. So bravo to you, because we need that energy among us. All right. So who of you thinks that the future is bleak, but you can influence the future? You still think if we work hard enough together, yeah, we can make a difference. All right, great. So you all are still trying, bless your hearts. Yeah. The rest of the people are off living their best life, but you guys are still in the struggle. So good for you. Bravo. How many of you would say the future is bright, but greater forces are at play? So I still have hope, but it's a little reserved. Yeah. Okay. So some of you, good. Good. And what about the future is bright and I can influence the future? Yeah. All right. So these are our delusional folks. Great. Yeah. So welcome to the Pollyannas of our world. We need those too, right? Brilliant. Bravo to you. Now, interesting to think about. If I were to ask you this tomorrow, or if I would have asked you this when you were in your teens or your 20s, do you think that would have shifted for you a little bit, right? Yeah, isn't that interesting? So the stories we tell ourselves about the future have huge impact on how we act in the present. So we often have stories or a story, a dominant story running kind of in the background of our minds that is usually unquestioned. So if I believe, for example, that the world, the economy is terrible, that violence and crime is on the rise and only going to get worse, that the best I can do is circle the wagons and buy many guns in my country and, grow my own food and try to create my own little homestead because I'm scared of what's going on. Then what that means is if that's the story operating in my head, it will impact how I invest my money. It will impact who I associate with. It will impact the communities I support and belong to, the organizations that I invest into. It impacts everything, every decision that I make in the present, because I have a story, a script running in my mind that is telling me these are logical decisions to make today, because if I make a guess about the future, this is the story that I'm adopting. I could also tell a story to myself that, even in the face of climate change, that technology is coming online that will help us figure this hot mess out, literally hot mess. That in fact, the economy is actually strong, that we're not going into recession and that we'll be okay through this, that crime is actually not high, that actually it's just our sensationalism of crime stories that seems to be running rampant so that we scare ourselves. So in truth, there's never been a healthier, better, safer time to be human. Now, that is just a story, isn't it? There's data to back that story up as well. And if that's a story that I'm telling myself, then that equally impacts how I use my time today, where I invest my funds, who I associate with, what organizations I support. Do you see? So there are scripts that are running in our minds that usually unexamined, that deeply impact our reactivity and our scale of vision in the present moment. So it could be that the art of leadership right now is to actually rescript some of the narratives that are not in service to a just and generous future going forward that each one of us has. So in essence, what we're doing today is we're not studying the future. We're not trying to make best guesses about the future. We're actually going to study the stories we tell ourselves or we think about the futures. Do you see the distinction, right? Okay. So that's in essence what we're going to be up to today. Now, yesterday, for those of you who are here, you saw this slide. For those of you who are new today, then welcome to the party. So you and I are trained in a lot of different anticipatory skills. So again, as we talked about yesterday, we use skills like foresight, where we're making good guesses based on data trends that we can see or based on relationships or skills or technologies that we see coming online or coming into existence. We use forecasting, again, based on big data in this age, scenario planning, horizon scanning, futures consciousness, speculative design. But today we're going to play in the space of futures literacy. Now, again, futures literacy is about the story we're telling ourselves about different futures, or the stories we're telling ourselves about futures, and how in playing in those stories, we can actually expand our imagination and see possibilities that we might have missed before. I'm going to just fast forward through this. Now, we're going to play with the tension between the probable and desirable futures. So I'm going to teleport us to the year 2070. Now, I've chosen that year for a very specific reason. I'll be quite blunt. Most of us in this room, except the 5, I think, who raised their hands, will not be alive in 2070, right? So in 2070, what I'm doing is I'm asking you to imagine a future that is not in service to you particularly, but in service to future generations, to our ancestors coming. And so therefore, I'm hoping that opens up some creativity in you. So, and I'm also taking us to 2070 because there's absolutely no way that you could possibly make good guesses. You're not going to be able to logic your way necessarily to 2070. If I'd said 2030, then you might start to think about the context of this age and start to try to logic your way there. What that does is it crushes our imaginations. It puts artificial boundaries on the scale at which we're capable of dreaming. So I'm going to ask you to just teleport to the year 2070, and I'd like you to describe the world you would bet on. So the most logical world that you could imagine in the world 2070. And this is simply an imagination. Now, I'd love for you to be playful about this because again, that's where our greatest creativity comes from. So you might say, hey, as we did earlier, we're going to have jetpacks in the year 2070, right? Or maybe we'll be living on Mars, or who knows in the year 2070 what the dynamics would be. So think of it as a snapshot. It's a movie. It does not matter how we got to 2070. So it's not about the journey to how we develop anything, but I want you to think about what's the world you would bet on in the year 2070. Now, I'm going to ask you to talk about this at your tables, talk to the people most accessible to you. But here's what we have to promise each other. I've got to move us through some questions at lightning speed so you get this experience. When you see me raise my hand, I need you to raise your hand and stop talking, all right? Because we can't afford long transitions in order for us to get through this, all right? So when I raise my hand, you raise your hand and please stop talking and then we'll continue on moving through questions. All right, can you work with this? All right, ready, set, you've got 6 minutes, let's say, go. I like that.
Hey, everybody. Inviting you to join a breakout group and discuss.
Hello?
Oh. Can you hear me?
I was lost in space, yes.
Okay, great. What does it look like, do you think, in 2070?
Right. Have we all unmuted?
I'm not sure.
I don't think Gisela has, or Elaine.
If you're ready to talk, then you just unmute yourself.
Yes.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well done. Marie's iPad is still muted, and so is Margaret Nielsen.
Yeah, people can just unmute themselves when they want to speak.
Okay.
I was just saying in the breakout room that I think in 2070, with all the resources being in short supply, because climate change will have had its way with us, our water is going to be compromised, food, because all of our land is being used for building on, that they're going to say, no old people. There'll be a time frame when you hit a certain age and you'll be euthanized and away you go.
Oh.
So I said, I think I know where I stand on the future is bright or the future is bleak. I didn't think about that before, but I think I know now where I stand.
You remind me of a book which I had to study when I was in university. Now I'll be damned if I can think what it is. But it is where you, after you got to a certain age, you were done for.
Yep.
I'm trying to think what the name of that book was. It'll
It's
come
also a
to me in
Star
the middle
Trek
of the
episode.
night.
Star
Sorry?
Trek episode, yeah.
It's a Star Trek episode.
Well, I'm from Vulcan,
no.
so
This was
Next generation, I think.
yeah, I'm
No,
from
it
Vulcan,
was-
so there you go.
Yeah, it was in a classical one written, yeah. And
I think you might be thinking of the giver.
Nope, this is even before that.
Yeah, the
about-
giver's got the story, right? The stories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this would have
Let
been,
me insert myself, and just because I see people have their hands up. Elaine, what did you want to say?
Well, I imagine, I think it's good if we put hands up. I imagine that, I do imagine things more positively.
Well done.
I have some
Oh my
faith.
gosh, look at you guys. This is very unusual. It's like I'm working with Presbyterians. Wonderful. Ah, this is very decent and good order here. All
She's
right, so tell
talking
me,
again.
let's just popcorn out some of the ideas that you all
no,
had.
she's talking.
I'll repeat for the online audience, so you don't have to run to
We're back.
microphones.
We're back now, so I'm going to mute you
What
all.
does the year what's the year 2070 look like? What's the
No,
world you're gonna bet
she's
on?
back.
Retirement. You're gonna be retired.
I would
Well,
like
good
the
to have
speaker-
ambitions.
Hear the theme
Good.
speaker.
Yeah.
I would like to hear the theme speaker, please.
Okay, so some sort of cataclysmic event, half of humanity will have been wiped out by climate change, nuclear war, something will have happened. Good. Oh. Well, okay, so a utopia, abundance. So there'll be no more poverty, that there'll be no more war, that everyone will have what they need and an equitable culture in society. Did I get that? All right. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Good. Okay, so the idea of property and ownership will have changed so that people will not be valued for who they or what they have, but who they are, what they bring to the table. Love that. Good. Capitalism will have dissolved. Good. Yeah. that would. Yeah. Christ will have returned. Good. I saw a hand there and then I see over there. So we'll go there. Say that one more time. We'll have female, indigenous. Great. So our political and cultural structures will be represented by or representative of female, indigenous culture. Did I get it? Hope. Like the hats. You want a pope in the future. I have to tell you, that's a first. Yeah, good. All right, well done. Okay. Good. There was a hand back there. Yes. Nice. All right. So inclusion will be assumed. It will be normalized, and not so much work is sort of what I was hearing in that. Good. Okay. Yes. Yes. Right. Yeah. Lower world population. Yeah. Okay. Good. Anything else that came up that feels, yes. Mass obesity and personal immobilization. Okay. Okay. So mass obesity and universal income. And there was one other that personal immobilization. Oh, okay. Okay, got it. The Wall-E movie, personal immobilization. Okay. And universal healthcare, was that what I was? Income, sorry. It's hard to repeat it, write it, and process it. Yeah, Are you curious about the mass obesity? Is that what you're saying? Well, that's true. Yeah, too late. Don't judge me. Good. Yeah, so poor health is what you're sensing, that we'll be in a situation of declining health. Yes. AI will become the predominant form of government. Is that what I heard? Government? Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay, so we will have fewer curious people and the need for critical thinking will not be there. will not be encouraged as it is today. Okay. All right, good. Any others? We'll be living communally. Okay. All right. Faith communities and religion will be coming together. So there'll be just sort of a one sort of unified movement. Okay, good. Okay. Say again. One currency, one global currency. Yeah, good. Okay. All right, good. Okay, we're going to be on the way to Mars. We won't have reached it. Okay, so we'll have voyeurs that are going to Mars. All right, brilliant. Okay. No money, we'll have cards. Okay, not chips like in the back of our neck or in our palm, but we'll just use cards. Okay, yeah, so we won't roll out chips, but cards seem more logical to you. Yeah, okay. All right, great. Okay, so if I'm getting a sense of your instinct here, something will have happened that will have decreased human population on the planet. So whether it's global or climate change, or whether it's nuclear war or something, will have decreased the number of humans here. Capitalism will have run its course. So we'll have some sort of new economic framework and a single global currency, maybe. We will be in poorer health and personal immobilization, but we will be way more inclusive. In fact, we're going to have a female indigenous pope. That's going to be amazing. I mean, I love this future. AI will be framing or shaping our government. We'll be living communally. We'll be sending people to Mars, but they won't have reached it yet by 2070. And what did I miss? Everything, did I get most? Oh, and we'll be using cards for our money. No cash, no exchange, cash exchange. Okay, decent, right? Well, you've got other riches at your table that I just don't have time to mine, but you can get a sense of the picture when we think about, when we envision, tell ourselves a story about the year 2070. All of these interesting little twists and turns that we've got just in our imaginations here. So now I want to ask you what the church will look like in that frame. So what would the church look like in the year 2070 in that probable world that you just dreamed of? Okay, so not just the church as it teleported into the best 2070 you could imagine, but in the probable world that you're going to bet on, what does the church look like in that world? Who will be a part? What will we be doing, etc.? All right, can you work with this? Okay, 6 minutes, go for it.
All right, friends. If you've got an idea, unmute yourself, share.
I don't think that the church will be a building any longer, that it's going to be something completely different that we can't even see just yet. And I think the beliefs, all of the different faiths that are out there, they are going to sort of come together into some fashion that we won't all be split by different churches on every single different block to meet everybody's needs, so to speak. It'll be completely different, something that I can't even visualize.
I agree, and that's why I'm interested that we use the phrase now communities of faith. I don't think we will be called a church anymore, meaning the building and the people who go to the building, and the church is the people, but I think the community of faith will much better represent who we are. And it definitely won't be marked physically. We talk about silos in the United Church, but I think by 2070, everything's online. So we won't be silos of churches in Calgary or any other city. In my mind, it will be universal across the world based on interests.
Yeah.
I think, though, that the church, however it looks and however it unfolds, will be underground again, because we are still going to have to speak out, and we're going to have to pull together, because it's not going to be as perfect as we think it's going to be. And the churches will still, their mission will still be lived out in whatever way we unfold, but it's going to be not up front and center, I don't think.
I even think that what the church is based on in terms of the beliefs is going to be different, because from my perspective, I have seen, and I've said it to Rachel, our minister, that Jesus is being pushed out of the picture. And I think by 2070, he will be out of the picture. And I don't know what that community of faith that we would have then would be basing its beliefs, like, instead of the 10 Commandments, what will be in place to sort of help us give a little bit of guidance as to how we should live our lives. Because our value systems, they're changing so rapidly. And it's like she said yesterday, you used to be able to look ahead 10 years, and now even 2 years is too much. And things are changing at a wicked, wicked pace.
I see sort of the same thing. And I think we have such good values based on Jesus and what he taught and what the Bible taught. And I think the Bible will be out because there's so much in it that related to 2,000 years ago. Yeah, a lot of it we can make it relate to today, but I have a feeling we will have a new Bible and maybe a new concept, but I sure hope we keep our beliefs that Jesus taught us.
Yeah.
I don't know if this will be true, but I hope that we keep singing. Seems like church is one of the last places that we sing in our culture, and we just know that the health and spiritual and psychological and social benefits of singing together are tremendous. So I hope the church is still a place of singing.
It might be easier to sort of believe that if you're in a larger, like in a city, in a large place. But where I live, the churches are slowly, because of attrition and people moving and dying, they're slowly closing. And new churches aren't being built. So I can see it on the landscape that we won't have those buildings there anymore. We might go back the way that Jesus and his disciples did it, of meeting inside one another's homes, which I think that has a lot of benefits to it, as well,
yeah.
because it can be close and very intimate.
This is Diane again, and I believe in things going full circle. And I think full circle will happen several times before 2070, but hopefully it'll be going full circle back to us becoming communities and each of us having roles within the church, that's what keeps us together, whether it be making a pie or whether it be being the leader of a worship team, you know. I think we need to
back now, friends.
Okay.
Good. Okay, so the church in your imagination ceases to exist as we currently know it. But we are the church. Right? So something will exist because the church is in us. But you wanted to make a really strong plug for AI because maybe God uses that as a tool, an instrument to continue the mission. So maybe it's not bad. We shouldn't fear it. Good. Okay. Others. Yes. Right. All right, the church will be like a wild church. So I love it. Communion around the campfire, more accepting, more open. Well, I was hearing more flexible and more, just sort of a little more authentic and more just come as you are, right? Yeah, I like that. I probably shouldn't have an opinion. I shouldn't be egging you on either way, but I'm like, I heard of that church. Yeah, right? All right, good. Yes. Great. Okay, so it's not going to be, it won't exist as a sort of institutional organized religion in your worldview or in the story, but we'll be more spiritually mature. So more connected to God, self, others, and nature. Do I have that? Okay. Good. Yes. Mm. Okay, so monasteries in the Dark Ages, so communities of practice. And hospitality. Okay, good. All right. Yes. All right, so we'll be a holder and pronouncer of primal story rather than, sorry, did you say descriptive? Descriptive theology, prescriptive theology. Okay. Good, I like that. Okay. Oh, woo, look at him. We will, ordained by God. No one will need a license to prescribe the rituals that we will have. All right. All right, there's a little bold dream right there. Yeah. The leadership in theology will be led by the Global South. Okay, good. The Global South, everything below the equator. Yeah, so leadership and ideas and the story will be coming from the Global South. Yeah, good. Okay, yes. Five new versions of the Bible. Oh, I love it. Can Braiding Sweetgrass be one of them? Because I really love that text. I love that book. All right, good. All right, good. Others? Yes. Okay, good. All right. So accessible pathways for spiritual growth, spiritual development. Is that what I was hearing? And gatherings around tables, much like the song that we sang this morning. Fewer pews. All right. Okay, good. Yeah. Is it, yeah. There will be no United Church of Canada. Get out. Yeah, good. The youth will have their place at the table finally by 2070. Yeah. Excellent. Yep. Okay, good. Anything else? Any other ideas that are divergent from what we've heard that you all thought of? Yes. Okay, so Christianity will be simpler and will return to the ancient practices. Okay. Did any of you think that Christianity would not be here, that there would be some other kind of global religion? Yes. One table. Anybody else? Yeah. Okay, good. So Christianity may be here in a simplified form. It may not be here. We may have gone to something more spiritual and inclusive of other faiths, traditions, so more of a spiritual but not religious kind of thing. All right. Good. Brilliant. Can we keep going? You all right? All right. So now, we've been playing in the space of probable future. So this is the world that you would bet on. This is based on your life experiences, your investment and learning about this institution and committed to this institution. This is the space we've been playing in. Now, what I'd like you to ask you to imagine is the desirable future. There's the probable future and there's the desirable future. And sometimes there's a gap in between. There's a longing. So I want you to imagine the desirable future of spirituality in 2070. Now, by the time I get to spiritual or desirable future, I've got to broaden it out to spirituality because in your future of probable future, so for some of you, congregations didn't exist, right? Church as we understood it didn't exist. So we're going to play in the space of spirituality. And church may exist in yours. So depict the community that you want to belong to. So what's in it for you? Again, focus on the day of the life of the activities. What do you do when you wake up in the mornings, etc. Can you work with this? All right, go to it.
What I see, if you look at sort of the desirable future, it actually means that I go back in time about 3-4 years when a group of us used to meet for a Bible study. But that Bible study, you'd have to put quotes around it because it could be the Bible that we were studying, or it could be a book that someone had written that had to do with something spiritual, so that we chose what we were interested in and we explored it. And the rule was that anyone could say whatever their truth was, that there was no right or wrong within our group, so that it always felt very freeing. And afterwards, we would go and have a cup of coffee, and what we would sort of say that we laughed and looked at one another and said that we had gone to church that morning when we had our Bible study, quote unquote, sessions. And that to me would be the simplest and the most meaningful, because of the fact of the connections that were built. And you were free to grow and learn in whatever direction that you wanted to go, as well.
I really like that because everybody would have a common understanding in order to be able to have that discussion, but differences of opinions and everything on spirituality. My wish for the future, or what I would see the most desirable, is that somehow we're able to convince the younger people of the importance of spirituality. In my world, I never had kids, But I know of so many families who had kids and the kids never saw the church. They didn't figure out, the spirituality through getting together with other people or going to church. And I would like to see in the future that they have a place to go when they have issues or anything. They know they can go up to God and just kind of talk to him in their own ways. So that's my ideal.
I agree with you on that, except for the fact that the children, when you grow up as a child, what you become actually in large part is what your parents model. And nowadays families are struggling just to put food on the table. I guess in this future, all of that will have to have been fixed or changed or rectified or whatever the right word would be, because as our present stands, that could never happen. It'll just become worse and worse in terms of spirituality being a part of everyone's life. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I'd like to see more recognition again of just the golden rule: do unto others like you'd have others do unto you. I think that was pretty significant when I was a little kid, and it made you think just really about what you were doing.
I guess it could be a case of defining what a good person is, because yeah, I do know a lot of people that are very good people, but they're not Christian by definition. But they walk and talk all of the qualities of a Christian person anyway, so that in my mind, they are actually very strong spiritual people. It's not clear as to what their spirituality is based on or where it came from.
I'm wondering, we're more quiet about the desirable future. Wondering whether we sort of forgot how to dream.
You're probably right, because there's been so much happening that sort of feels completely out of our control.
All right.
Spend so much energy
Well
trying
done. Well
to
done.
maintain what we have.
All right, we're going to continue our report out. I just did get a note that if you're still talking at your table when we're doing the report outs, it's super distracting. So let's be respectful and let's listen, and I'll do my best to report what you're saying. But tell me, what's the desirable future of spirituality? What'd you look? Yes. Oh, such an enthusiastic wave. All right. Yes. Well, you're going to be the preacher of that to inspire us, because your enthusiasm. So we'll have a future, the future of spirituality be marked by grace. So I put in my notes, no isms, no homophobia, no discrimination, no in any of the things that divide us. Did I get it? Yes. All right. Good. Yes. Mm. So a future where everyone is a spiritual director, where we listen deeply and ask clarifying questions and yeah. Good, okay. Leads with your heart, good. Okay. Let's see, red shirt, yeah. And then heaven on earth, well, that's concise, well done, okay. Heaven on earth, go ahead. Okay, so no more meetings. Whatever will we do? But we will be out there, yeah, making this world a better place. So we will have a daily agenda, but it will be action oriented, will be, yeah. So in service to ministry, not management. Yeah, well, okay, great, yes. Okay, so paying attention to all our relations and listening to nature. Okay, good, yes. A church that's growing, what? Okay. All right, church that's growing, good. Yeah, so silence is spirituality, so daily silent devotion. Yeah, so I'm hearing like a contemplative, a sort of a slowing down and being quiet. Yeah, good. I like that too. Sign me up. Yes, right over there. Picking up on that, daily prayer in the morning. And also, a spirit of Sabbath, where Sabbath can be a time of rest and play and meditation, not yeah, okay. So so a daily prayer and ritual will be kind of ordering or structuring our beings, and then a return to Sabbath where we take intentional time to be reflective instead of handling all the unfinished chores of the week prior. Good. Yes, there and then. Either one. More fasting and less eating. I don't like that future. but well done, yeah. Okay. Community based on fellowship around meals. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes. All right, let's keep our voices down, please. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. Yeah, I know I'm singing the song in my head, but you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one, right? Yes, good. Yes, imagine all the people. Yes, but back in the back. Okay, so collaborative worship, leadership, spirituality. So we're say again. We excel at that, so it's natural. It's without effort. Yeah. Good. Okay. Okay. All right. So more primal in faith. So we ritualize and celebrate our lives. In what did you say? In faith and passages of life. Right. Life's moments of our life cycle. Yeah. Great. Yep. Okay. Good. All right. Anything else? Anything that's missing from our conversation that was at your table? All right. So we've now surfaced the probable future that you would bet on and the desirable future that you would wish for or hope for yourself in the year 2070, if it was for you. So now what I'm going to do is try to uncover some assumptions that were part of our unspoken assumptions that were part of our imaginations. Now, they might be unspoken simply because there was an opportunity, because normally we would take a full day to have this exploration and there would be plenty of time to dig in and I would be listening very carefully, or if you took this practice back, you would be listening very carefully for what are some of the things we're just assuming might be so. So in the world of AI, for example, because that came up, we have been possibly assuming that we'd have an open internet, that there was a way in which technology had not been weaponized against us, for example. We might be assuming that that global climate change had not made where we live here in Medicine Hat unlivable, or wherever you come from, whatever land you're in, right? So we're making an assumption that there's sort of a rootedness in place there. We may be making some assumptions about leadership and what that looks like, or about how we'll fund our gatherings, et cetera. So there are things that we hold in place in our imagination to give us context in order to have conversation. So what I'm now going to do is throw a reframe. Now, in the moment, when I'm working with groups, I would typically create the reframe in real time based on what I'm hearing in the room. But because we're doing this quickly, I had to guess at what I would hear in the room. And so you're going to see if I got it anywhere close. But here's the reframe. Now, I should also say, this is just a future. It's not a good or bad future. It's not a desirable or undesirable future per se. It's just a story about a future that I want to ask you to play in. So I'm going to give you the future instead of you giving it to me. So we'll just reverse. So it's still the year 2070, but I'm going to give you your cataclysmic event. So instead of 8 billion people on Earth, there are now just 1 billion people. There are no nation states, and people are moving frequently because of social and climate disruptions. Most of our institutions have collapsed, including public schools, affordable healthcare, which for you all might not be an issue, but for some context that timely healthcare might be more of an issue. Local governments have collapsed, and denominations. So in that cheery world, what does spirituality and or church look like in that space? Can you work with this? Are you breaking out in hives? Anyone want to run from the room? Yeah, this is where it gets fun. So again, be playful, be imaginative. Let's just play in this world. What would it look like in this world? All right. So we're going to take 6 minutes again. Go to it.
Can you all hear me?
Hi. I don't know whether I'm there or not because I don't see any pictures of people. I just can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just don't see anybody. I'm still looking at the
to a box called View.
Oh, I'm on my phone, so maybe
that's why. It's because
Yeah.
you're on your phone. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
I
good.
read a really good book a few years ago that compared the time we're living in now to the time that the Roman Empire collapsed, when all the Visigoths and Gauls and Huns and everybody were coming in. And this was the emergence of the monasteries and the abbeys as centers of kind of an alternative culture, which were places that farmed and brewed beer and set up hotels, hospitality for pilgrims and travelers, and became healthcare centers, and basically founded these countercultural communities in a time of social disruption and collapse. And I found that kind of oddly inspiring and wondered if what we're being called to in this time is using our properties and our buildings and our resources to refound those alternative communities with social enterprise and healthcare and education and community life together.
Okay, I think that's very good. I was thinking more that the churches would just assume more of a help face where they would become, as you say, I didn't think of the monastery idea, but I thought they would be places that people went to for assistance, for food, for just all that kind of extra care that the government was no longer providing. So I think you're right. And not only that, if these monasteries and that, they would probably develop a doctrine too, which would be similar to religion.
Yes. Yes, the book is called Refounding Communities of God's People, and it's by Alan Roxburgh, Roxburgh, and I've popped it in the chat if you want to have a look.
Okay.
At it. Yeah. And the his website. What do other folks think?
Well, I think that people are going to end up having to come together. If there's no states and no no real government, that you're basically on your own, but we can never be on our own. So we are going to draw together in some form of community. And so something monastery-like would fit the bill, though I suspect that even there's other forms of community that might happen. Because she never included anything. No, I guess did schools, they've all, oh yeah, schools collapsed. So in terms of education, there's that question. In communication, she didn't say whether the internet was up or down, but we rely so heavily on communication nowadays. And what she describes, I don't think that it's going to be there to the degree that we've become comfortable or uncomfortable with, I guess, depending on.
All right, well
review.
done. I'm sorry I had to cut that one short because it's such a rich, I hope for you, rich question. But tell us about the reframed world. What's happened? Yes. Okay, so a more indigenous lifestyle. So we'll be teaching things that are based more on survival. We'll be looking to healers for medicine and support, and spirituality will be more personal. Good. And so we'll be dependent on the indigenous leaders and teachers because this will be such a new world. Yeah. Good. Okay. We will be indigenous. Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Others? Yes. All right, so education will be the responsibility for all of the community, which means we'll have learning from birth to death. And I'm hearing the echoes of it takes a village of, we'll all be responsible for that. I love it. Good. What else? Yes. Yeah, so the economy will be trading and bartering. Yep, good. Yes. Yes.
I've been running around calling for you for 20 minutes.
Oh, well, here I am.
I thought we were going to the horse.
No, I said at lunch, Jerry, when they had the lunch.
Yes.
And religion brought us up all of those times. Not the church I hope that but I think the church will be very complex in that scenario.
Yes. Yeah. So in this kind of scary future that could, for some might be scary, that religion will skyrocket because we'll be. Yeah, beliefs. Yeah. Right. Okay, so we may turn inward actually in our fear and in grief. Yeah, no, yeah, we might be turning to religion as a coping mechanism and get bad religion as a result. Yeah, good. Yes. Yeah, so inspiration from Paul, sort of seeking out people on the move, finding place and finding people in that kind of nomadic way that Paul did. Nice. All right. Yes, final comment. Yes. Okay. So we're all one in the sense of no one is more or less important than the other. Good. All right. So I know there are millions of other ideas and other brilliance here. But apparently there's this thing called lunch. So we're eager to get to it. So I want to bring us now back to the year 2023. So we've just gone on this imaginal journey of the probable and desirable future. And then I threw in a reframe to kind of disturb some of the assumptions that we were holding, may have been holding, and to sort of at that moment, trying to kind of break through this poverty of imagination that we hold just as human beings. It's just a conditional reality. So I'm wondering, just a couple of you, if you want to popcorn out, what has shifted for you? What felt important at the beginning of the conversation that maybe feels less so? Or what have you realized as a part of this journey? Yeah. All right. What shifted for you? Go ahead.
I think for myself, and you need to know that through this, I have started to experience a bit of anticipatory grief.
Yes.
But structure and traditions don't have as much importance to me now as deep-seated faith. Because that's what's going to carry us into the future.
Yes.
And more than anything to me.
Beautiful. Yeah. Good. Anyone else? What shifted? So a loosening of our stronghold on our forms of church right now, our structures, our traditions that have brought us thus far. They've been wonderful gifts, but may not carry us further, or may not carry us to 2070. Go ahead.
So we can always imagine or anticipate the future, but I think the way we imagine is just helping us to plan, to act, and to love in the present, rather than just like worrying about the future, regretting the past. And we have the chance to listen to every little voice in our congregations.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Oh, that's so nice. That's great. So, so you actually, that's a nice way to end, although I can't get us to our final slide. So thank you all for going on this imaginal journey. You've just completed your first Accelerated Futures Lab. I hope it's the first of many, actually, that you'll take yourselves through. It's important for us to realize as visionaries, as leaders in this particular moment in human history, that future is a fiction. It's a set of stories that we tell ourselves, and we have control over how we want to craft those and what we create from them. How we anticipate matters because it changes the present. We suffer from a poverty of imagination, particularly in the works that we do, which is particularly dangerous to our culture. We plan and prepare to eliminate uncertainty. Stretching our imagination helps us be open for novel and emergence, and we need both of these practices in our leadership. So thank you all for the journeying with me, for trusting me to take you through this. I look forward to tomorrow.
Thank you, Cameron. Let's all offer another round of thanks to what she's presented for us. My brothers and sisters, siblings in Christ, I must ask of you your complete discipline for the next 2 minutes and have no speaking while I offer these announcements. Please resist the temptation to offer commentary on anything that I say to your neighbor. We are a little behind schedule, so we will have to ask that you return back from lunch at exactly 1:30 in your table, ready to go. For lunch, we are going to invite you to sit into cluster groups so you can do not move around, maintain discipline. You'll have to gather up the things from your table that you're worried that someone might spill something on or anything, because you're going to move to another table. All right. I'll tell you the table groups. You will not move though. The East and West Central Cluster will be meeting at tables 2 and 3. What I will call the Queen Elizabeth Highway, north of Calgary, all the ones on Highway 2, north of Calgary, will meet at table 4. North Calgary will meet at tables 5 and 6. Tables 7 and 8 will be South Calgary cluster. If there's any overflow for Calgary, they will sit at table 1. The Foothills cluster will sit at tables 9 and 10, and South Alberta cluster will sit at tables 11 and 12. Please, no commentary. I'm sorry to be a bad guy, but I have to get us through things. Outside, directly outside of the church doors, there is a red Mazda with the license plate BMR 4636. I'm terribly sorry, but we have to ask you to move that vehicle. We need the space for the supper meal that's going to come. It's so elaborate and gigantic of a supper meal that we're so looking forward to that we need the extra space to get vehicle into that spot. So I'm very sorry to that person, whoever you are, but could you please move your vehicle? And when you do so, go to see Carol at the Fifth Avenue United office and let her know you're moving, and she'll put a pylon in that place. If you would like to participate in the mass choir that will be singing at the celebration of ministry service, they will be meeting in the sanctuary at, well, now with the time, we're going to say at 1 o'clock now. They'll meet at 1 o'clock. I'm going to ask the people that are planning to participate in the choir be the first people that will go up to receive lunch. Thank you to the volunteers for offering lunch. And then one final thing, on your tables, you have received a green nominations recruitment piece of paper. That great, thank you, that Kelly is holding there. Excellent display of it. Could you please answer any response if you have an interest that you might be interested in serving on any of those committees of the regional council? Could you please, while you're waiting to go up for lunch, write those down? The business committee folks are going to come by your table and they're going to collect those within the next 4 minutes, we'll say. Okay. You may.
Rise up, rise up, rise up, oh my soul. Rise up and sing this blessing to God's name. Rise up, rise up, rise up, oh my soul. Rise up and sing this blessing to God's name. Amen.